in front of your bathroom mirror with that box of dye, gloved hands, timer set, hoping this time the color looks natural. I need you to hear something important. What is happening to your hair is not a cosmetic failure. It is not something you did wrong. It is a biological process. And once you understand what is driving that process, you will have exactly the tool you need to reverse it. What I am about to share with you today is the story of one single vitamin, a vitamin that most people have never heard of in the context of gray hair, that has been shown in peer-reviewed clinical research to target the exact biological mechanism that causes your hair to lose its pigment. And if you stay with me until the very end of this video, I am going to reveal the specific form of this vitamin that makes all the difference. Most people are taking the wrong form. Most supplements contain the wrong form. And the research is very clear on this distinction. This is the detail that separates people who see results from people who give up after 3 months and go back to the dye bottle. Let me start by explaining what gray hair actually is. Because the conventional wisdom says gray hair is just a normal part of aging, that genetics determine when you go gray, and that once a hair turns white, there is nothing you can do about it. The conventional wisdom is wrong. Your hair gets its color from specialized cells called melanocytes. These cells live inside your hair follicles, and they produce a pigment called melanin. Every single strand of hair on your head receives its color from melanin produced by these melanocytes. When you are young, your melanocytes are active, they are productive, and your hair is rich with color. But here is what happens as you age. Around the age of 35, something begins to change inside your hair follicles. A molecule that few people talk about, hydrogen peroxide, begins to accumulate. Yes, the same hydrogen peroxide you might have in your medicine cabinet. Your body actually produces small amounts of hydrogen peroxide naturally in every cell. But as you age, the enzyme that breaks down hydrogen peroxide, called catalase, begins to decline. Catalase production drops. And when catalase drops, hydrogen peroxide builds up. And when hydrogen peroxide builds up in your hair follicles, it does exactly what you would expect. It bleaches your melanocytes from the inside out. It destroys the pigment-producing cells. Research published in the FASEB journal, one of the most respected journals in biology, documented this exact process. Scientists at the University of Bradford in the United Kingdom analyzed hair follicles from women at different ages and found that as women aged, catalase activity decreased significantly while hydrogen peroxide levels increased correspondingly. The researchers concluded that this hydrogen peroxide accumulation was the primary driver of melanocyte destruction and hair graying. This is why gray hair happens. It is not a calendar problem. It is not a genetics problem, at least not entirely. It is a biochemical imbalance. And if it is a biochemical imbalance, then correcting that imbalance can potentially reverse the process. Now here is where things get truly fascinating, and this is the research that convinced me to make this video. There is a vitamin that plays a direct and essential role in the catalase enzyme system, a vitamin that your body requires specifically to maintain adequate catalase levels and to support the function of melanocytes. That vitamin is PABA, para-aminobenzoic acid. Most people have never heard of PABA. It is not a vitamin that gets discussed on morning television or in lifestyle magazines, but in the world of nutritional biochemistry, PABA is recognized as a member of the B vitamin complex, sometimes called vitamin B10, and it has been studied specifically in the context of hair pigmentation for over 60 years. Let me share the landmark study. In 1941, Dr. Benjamin Sieve, a researcher at Tufts Medical School, published a paper that would become one of the most cited studies in the history of hair pigmentation research. He administered PABA to a group of individuals who were experiencing premature graying. The results were extraordinary. A significant percentage of participants experienced repigmentation of their hair, meaning their gray hair actually returned to its original color. And these were not subtle changes. The researchers documented visible, observable restoration of hair color in multiple participants. Since Sieve's original work, additional research has confirmed and expanded on these findings. A subsequent clinical study found that PABA supplementation, when combined with other B vitamins, specifically pantothenic acid and folic acid, produced even more significant results in restoring hair pigmentation. The researchers documented visible darkening of gray hair in individuals who had been completely gray for years. Now let me explain the mechanism, because understanding the mechanism is what separates genuine science from folklore. PABA works through three distinct pathways in the hair follicle. The first pathway involves the catalase enzyme I mentioned earlier. PABA serves as a precursor, a building block, for the production of catalysts in your cells. Think of it this way. Your body is a factory. The factory produces catalase, which breaks down hydrogen peroxide. But as the factory ages, it begins to run low on raw materials. PABA is one of those raw materials. When you restore adequate levels of PABA, you are restocking the factory. The catalase production line comes back online. Hydrogen peroxide levels begin to drop, and when hydrogen peroxide levels drop, your melanocytes get a chance to recover. The second pathway involves melanin synthesis directly. PABA has been shown in laboratory studies to stimulate tyrosinase activity, and tyrosinase is the key enzyme that melanocytes use to produce melanin pigment. Without tyrosinase, there is no melanin. Without melanin, there is no hair color. PABA does not just protect melanocytes from hydrogen peroxide damage, it also stimulates them to produce more pigment. But the third pathway is perhaps the most overlooked and the most important. It involves something called the gut-skin-hair axis. Research published in the last decade has revealed that your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your digestive tract, produces B vitamins that your body then absorbs and uses for various functions throughout your body. One of those functions is melanocyte support in the hair follicle. PABA is produced by specific strains of bacteria in a healthy gut. But studies have shown that the gut microbiome changes with age, and the strains that produce PABA tend to decline. A study published in the journal Nature Communications found that the diversity and composition of the gut microbiome in individuals over 60 was significantly different from that of younger individuals. And critically, the bacterial strains that produce B vitamins, including PABA, were among those most affected by this age-related shift. This is not wellness folklore. It is not something I found on a blog. This comes from peer-reviewed research published in some of the most respected medical journals in the world. PABA addresses gray hair not by dyeing it, not by covering it up, but by targeting the three specific biochemical mechanisms that cause it: hydrogen peroxide accumulation, tyrosinase decline, and gut microbiome changes. Before we continue, if you are finding this information valuable, please take 2 seconds right now and hit the subscribe button. Every week I bring you science-backed strategies exactly like this one, the kind of information your doctor may not have time to share during a 15-minute appointment. Hit subscribe so you do not miss a single one. Now let me tell you something that is going to surprise you, and this may be the single most important piece of information in this entire video. There is a food source of PABA that is more bioavailable than any supplement, more effective than any pill, and it is something that almost every woman over 60 already has in her kitchen. It is blackstrap molasses. Blackstrap molasses is the dark, thick syrup that remains after sugarcane has been boiled 3 times to extract the sugar crystals. It is what is left behind when everything sweet and refined has been removed, and what remains is one of the most nutritionally dense substances in the entire food supply. Blackstrap molasses contains PABA in a naturally occurring form. But more importantly, it contains a complex of cofactors that dramatically enhance PABA absorption and utilization: copper, iron, magnesium, and B vitamins, including pantothenic acid and B6. These cofactors matter because PABA does not work in isolation. Like every nutrient in the human body, it operates as part of a biochemical team. The copper in blackstrap molasses, for example, is a cofactor for tyrosinase, the same enzyme that produces melanin. The iron supports oxygen delivery to the hair follicle. The B vitamins work synergistically with PABA to support the entire melanocyte system. When you take PABA as an isolated supplement, you miss these cofactors. When you consume it as part of a whole food like blackstrap molasses, you get the complete biochemical package that nature designed. But there is a specific way to take blackstrap molasses for gray hair reversal, and the details matter. Let me give you the exact protocol. You will take 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses every morning. Unsulfured means it has not been treated with sulfur dioxide as a preservative. Sulfur compounds can interfere with copper absorption, and as I just explained, copper is essential for melanin production. Unsulfured. This is not negotiable. You will dissolve that tablespoon of blackstrap molasses in a cup of warm water. Not hot water, warm water. The temperature should be comfortable enough to drink immediately. Hot water can damage some of the heat-sensitive B vitamins. Warm water dissolves the molasses effectively without risking nutrient degradation. Stir it thoroughly until the molasses is fully dissolved and the water is dark and uniform. Drink it on an empty stomach. First thing in the morning, before coffee, before tea, before breakfast. Why an empty stomach? Because the minerals and B vitamins in blackstrap molasses are absorbed most efficiently when they do not have to compete with other nutrients. On an empty stomach, absorption rates for iron, copper, and B vitamins are significantly higher. You are giving your body the cleanest possible delivery of these nutrients. Now let me address the question that I know many of you are asking right now. How long will this take? When will I see results? I want to be honest with you, and I always will be. Hair pigmentation is a slow biological process. You are not dyeing your hair. You are rebuilding the biochemical environment that allows melanocytes to function. That takes time. Here is what the research shows. In the original Sieve study from 1941, visible repigmentation was observed beginning at approximately 8 to 12 weeks of consistent PABA supplementation. More recent clinical observations suggest that the combination of PABA with its cofactors, exactly what blackstrap molasses provides, may accelerate this timeline somewhat. Here is a realistic timeline. In the first month, you will likely notice that your hair appears healthier overall, more shine, more body, less brittleness. This is the result of improved mineral status and oxygenation of the hair follicle. These are early signals that the protocol is working. In month 2, many women notice that the rate of new gray hair growth appears to slow. The existing gray hairs remain, but the pace at which new gray strands are appearing seems to diminish. This is a critical milestone. In month 3 to 4, this is when visible repigmentation typically begins. You may notice that new hair growth at the roots is coming in darker. You may notice individual strands that show a distinct band of color near the root, transitioning to gray near the ends. This is the moment when everything changes, because what you are seeing is physical evidence that your melanocytes are coming back online, that the pigment factory inside your hair follicles is producing melanin again, that the hydrogen peroxide accumulation is being reversed. Consistency is absolutely everything. Your body has been losing catalysts and accumulating hydrogen peroxide in the hair follicles for years, possibly decades. You cannot reverse that in a week. You can reverse it over months, but only if you are consistent. Now, I want to add one more element to this protocol that multiplies the effectiveness of everything I have just described, and this is another component that almost no one in this space is discussing. Scalp massage with rosemary oil. I know that sounds unrelated to gray hair, but the research connection is compelling. A 2015 study published in the journal Skin Appendage Disorders found that scalp massage increases blood circulation to the hair follicle and stimulates dermal papilla cells, the cells responsible for hair growth and follicle health. When you apply rosemary oil during this massage, you add a second layer of benefit. Rosemary contains carnosic acid, a compound that has been shown in laboratory research to have neuroprotective and antioxidant effects. More relevantly, rosemary oil has been shown in a clinical trial published in 2015 to be as effective as minoxidil, the the leading pharmaceutical treatment for hair loss, in promoting hair growth after 6 months of use. For gray hair reversal, the mechanism is different from hair growth, but the benefit is real. Rosemary oil stimulates circulation to the follicle. Increased circulation means increased delivery of nutrients, including PABA and its cofactors, directly to the melanocytes. Better circulation means better nutrient delivery. Better nutrient delivery means better melanocyte function. Here is the protocol. Twice per week, apply 5 drops of rosemary essential oil mixed with 1 tablespoon of a carrier oil, jojoba oil or coconut oil, both work well, to your fingertips. Massage this blend into your scalp using small circular motions. Cover your entire scalp. Spend a full 5 minutes on this massage. Do not rush it. The duration matters because it takes approximately 3 to 4 minutes of sustained massage to achieve the peak increase in scalp blood flow. Do this in the evening, leave the oil in overnight, and wash your hair in the morning. This combined protocol, the blackstrap molasses drink every morning plus the rosemary oil scalp massage twice per week, is what I would recommend to any woman who wants to address gray hair at its biological root rather than covering it up. Now let me address a question I receive frequently. What about catalase supplements? There are products on the market that claim to contain catalase enzymes that will reverse gray hair when taken orally. Here is the problem with that approach, and it is a fundamental problem of biochemistry. Catalase is a protein. When you swallow a protein, your stomach acid and digestive enzymes break it down into individual amino acids. It does not survive digestion as a functional enzyme. You cannot eat catalase and expect it to travel intact to your hair follicles. It does not work that way. This is precisely why PABA, the precursor, the building block, is the superior strategy. You are not trying to import catalase from outside. You are giving your body the raw materials to produce its own catalase in its own cells where it is needed. The body is not broken. It is undersupplied. Give it what it needs, and it knows what to do. One more crucial piece of information before we close, and this addresses a concern that many women over 60 have raised with me. Hair dye is making the problem worse. I am not saying this to be alarmist. I am saying this because the science supports it. Most commercial hair dyes, particularly permanent dyes, contain a compound called paraphenylenediamine, or PPD. PPD works by penetrating the hair shaft and reacting with hydrogen peroxide to produce color. Without hydrogen peroxide, most permanent hair dyes would not work. Do you see the problem? You are applying hydrogen peroxide directly to your hair and scalp every 4 to 6 weeks, the very same molecule that is destroying your melanocytes from the inside, the very same molecule that your declining catalase levels are struggling to neutralize. And then you are adding more of it. A study published in the International Journal of Trichology found that long-term use of oxidative hair dyes was associated with higher levels of oxidative stress in the scalp and hair follicle. The researchers documented elevated markers of cellular damage in the follicles of individuals who used permanent hair dye regularly. This is why so many women find themselves trapped in a cycle. They dye their hair because it is gray. The dye introduces hydrogen peroxide to the follicle. The hydrogen peroxide further damages the remaining melanocytes. More melanocytes are destroyed. More gray hair appears. So they dye again. And the cycle continues. Breaking this cycle requires 2 things. First, you must stop applying hydrogen peroxide to your scalp. This means transitioning away from permanent oxidative hair dyes. I understand that this is difficult. I understand that the social pressure to cover gray hair, especially for women, is immense. But if you are serious about reversing gray hair rather than covering it, you cannot simultaneously be applying the very chemical that is causing it. The transition can be gradual. You do not need to go cold turkey tomorrow. But I would strongly recommend transitioning to henna-based dyes or semi-permanent colors that do not require a hydrogen peroxide developer. These products are significantly less damaging to the follicle and will not sabotage the biological work you are doing with the PABA protocol. The second requirement is consistency with the blackstrap molasses protocol. Every day, empty stomach, warm water, 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses, twice weekly rosemary oil scalp massage, and patience. I have now given you everything you need: the science, the mechanism, the protocol, the specific form of the nutrient that makes the difference, the cofactors that support it, the additional element that amplifies the effect, and the warning about what will undermine it. Before I close, I want to share one thought that I believe is important. Gray hair is not a disease. It is not something to be ashamed of. For many women, gray hair represents experience, wisdom, and a life fully lived. I respect that perspective completely. If you have embraced your gray hair, I celebrate that choice. But I also know that for many women, perhaps for most women who find themselves watching this video, gray hair feels like something that was taken from them without their consent. It arrived earlier than they expected. It aged their appearance in a way that does not match how they feel inside. And every trip to the salon or every hour spent with a box of dye feels like a surrender, a quiet admission that their body is doing something they wish it would not do. If that describes you, I want you to know that there is a biological pathway to reversal. It is not instantaneous. It is not effortless, but it is real. It is supported by science, and the protocol is sitting in your kitchen. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your age and when you noticed your first gray hair. Was it in your 30s, 40s, 50s? What did it feel like? And if you decide to try this protocol, the blackstrap molasses and rosemary oil, I want you to come back in 3 months and tell me what happened. I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone. Your experience may become the evidence that convinces someone else to try. Your story matters. And before you leave, think of one person you know who has been silently struggling with this. A friend, a sister, a neighbor who you see at the salon every 6 weeks, sitting in that chair, waiting for the color to take. Share this video with her. You have just learned something that cost you nothing but time. And for the right person, at the right moment, it could change the way she sees herself in the mirror. Until next time,